Warzone 2 is in big trouble, and I am very worried about the future of this game. I haven't made a sit down and talk video like this in an extremely long time, but with all the poor decisions that Infinity Ward has been making recently, I need to do this video because everything that has happened with the release of MW2 is leading me to believe that Warzone 2 is going to be an absolute disaster. Now, I tend to stay away from shit talking the developers of Call of Duty, even though over the last 3 years, they've made one good decision for every 50 bad decisions they've made. Usually, I just let the situation blow over and deal with it, but this time it has gotten way too out of hand. So let's kick things off with the launch of Modern Warfare 2. It launched on October 28th, and at the time of recording this video, it's been out for I think 4 days now, and the game is completely unfinished. Like, it is the most unfinished Call of Duty that we have ever seen in the history of this game. To put it into perspective, I have a list of everything missing that should have been in the game at launch. It is really bad. Hardcore mode. There is no hardcore mode. The hardcore community is very strong. Sometimes that is the only mode that they play. It's just simply not in the game whatsoever. Leaderboards aren't in the game. Stats, barracks, challenges, medals. There is zero combat record to check your stats in this game. You cannot check your KD ratio, okay? The ability to inspect weapons in Gunsmith, ability to save custom blueprints, camo unlock challenges do not show up in the game. You can't even see when you unlock the gold camo in game. You can't import your settings from things like Modern Warfare, Vanguard, stuff like that. XP tokens aren't tracking the cooldown, so you cannot even see how much time on the double XP you have left. Customizable reticles aren't there, and the split screen mode is not currently functional. Why is this not working? If anything, the full game that we're playing right now should be considered the beta, and the beta that we played a month ago should be considered the alpha. Like, literally, that's what it's looking like. The reason why I'm bringing up multiplayer, though, is because this game has been in development for 3 years with over 3,000 developers working on it. With that in mind, I'm predicting that Warzone 2 is going to be a living hell at launch, because during the COD Next event where content creators got flown out to LA to play early MW2 and Warzone 2, they actually thought that Modern Warfare 2 was in a better state than Warzone 2. So fast forward to November with Modern Warfare 2 having arguably the worst launch in COD history. Think about how worse Warzone 2 is going to be. It is going to be an absolute dumpster fire. And to understand how clunky Modern Warfare 2 feels, I have put my personal record gameplay on Rebirth up on the screen just to let it sink in that this stuff, like most of the stuff that you see right here in this game, is not going to be possible anymore in Warzone 2. The first thing I want to talk about is the loadout system, which is going to be very crucial for Warzone 2 success. Keep in mind, I am talking from a player perspective and also a content creator perspective. In Warzone 2, what we saw from the COD Next event, there is going to be no such thing as a loadout drop anymore. Now, apparently the new way that it's going to work is you will edit your class setups in the main menu just as we do now, but instead of buying a loadout drop, you will actually pick up ground loot guns, take those to a buy station, and then at the buy station, you will upgrade them to your class setup. Now, this could work, and I am willing to try it, but the thing that you have to remember is that loadouts made up 95% of the Warzone content that you see on YouTube. So essentially what's going to happen is there's going to be an unfamiliar and potentially very bad loadout system, which will not only create a disconnect in not only the pacing of the game, but in the way that creators produce their content. So if it's not a convenient system, you're gonna have a 1, unhappy player base, and 2, an unhappy audience that actually consumes Warzone content. And I know this for a literal fact, because when I look at my audience retention graphs in YouTube, people either leave the video when I use ground loot or skip the video until I get my loadout. The data doesn't lie on my end. I'm not too sure what data Infinity Ward is getting that would lead them to change the loadout system, because when Caldera first released, they took away the ability to buy loadouts before the first circle closed, and it ended up resulting in an absolute disaster. I think that's the most unhappy the Warzone community has ever been, because it literally got to the point where people actually stopped playing Warzone, and that is not what Activision wants. They want us to keep playing Warzone. So why they would change the perfectly good loadout system that we have right now, I seriously don't know. So I have a very strong feeling that within the first couple weeks of Warzone's 2 release, they will will realize how poor of a decision they made. The second thing that I'm very worried about is the movement mechanics in Warzone 2. With the release of Modern Warfare 2, here is what they did to the existing movement system in Warzone 1. They nerfed the bunny hop, removed the slide cancel, and nerfed the tactical sprint. Now, I actually don't mind these movement nerfs in multiplayer too much because they are smaller maps, but for Warzone 2, I think it's going to be an utter disaster because not only does the existing movement system allow you to engage in gunfights, but it also allows you to evade gunfights and traverse around a massive map a lot faster. Without an official tactical sprint and a way to reset the tactical sprint like a slide cancel, you are essentially capping the potential mobility in Warzone at like 50%. And the reason why these movements were so successful in Warzone 1 was because you were able to use them in a sequence. They weren't standalone. You could bunny hop into a slide cancel into a bunny hop, slide cancel to reset your tactical sprint, or any variation of those mechanics. Now in Modern Warfare 2, which will be carried over into Warzone 2, obviously, you cannot do any of that. There's nothing new to learn. There's nothing new to get better at. I see the argument all the time that slide canceling is pointless and that it's a good thing it's getting removed because it gives us a chance to learn a new movement system, which is just completely irrelevant because there is nothing new about the movement in Modern Warfare 2. It's what we've had for the past 3 years, plus a dolphin dive, which we've had for like a decade now. But the only change is that it is nerfed to the ground into the dirt. Like, it is nerfed so bad. Now pay very close attention because what needs to be understood by everyone is that Warzone 1 movement opened so many doors for Call of Duty as a whole because it introduced a much needed skill gap, but also a hungry audience that could be fed new content. To put it into perspective, I'm going to show you how much of an impact advanced movement had on the discoverability of Warzone. So we're going to search up Warzone movement on YouTube, but keep in mind, look at how many other search results there are for Warzone movement on YouTube. So we're going to input this, we're going to go to our filters, and we're going to sort it by view count. Look at how many people watch this type of content. This is a hungry audience of people that not only like to consume this stuff, but also like to play like this. You have people like Joel right here who originally built who they were on Warzone because of his movement. Like, it literally makes no sense why they would actually take these movement mechanics out of the game. And I could just keep scrolling, man. I mean, there's millions upon millions of people that watch this type of stuff because it unlocked a whole niche of content that people could consume, man. So when I see casual players who say that slide canceling isn't needed, bunny hopping isn't needed, nobody does it besides big streamers, well, that's literally disproven right there because there's millions of people who not only actually play like that, but also watch that type of content. Like, what? Here's the truth. A passive and aggressive playstyle can coexist, as we can clearly see, because it is coexisting right now in real time as we speak in Warzone 1. So with that being said, what's the point of taking away advanced movement if they can coexist? Well, there's two reasons, and they are two very, very stupid reasons. For one, if you didn't already know, Modern Warfare 2019 and MW2 were built specifically for lower skilled players. Don't believe me? Well, check out this 2019 clip from Joe Seacott, who is the co-design director of Modern Warfare multiplayer.
Is the balanced matchmaking a priority for Modern Warfare?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the things we really want to do with this game is we want to get new players in the game, and we want them to kind of like, we don't want them to just get punched in the mouth over and over again until they leave.
But that approach that you're describing there isn't going to come at the expense of the hardcore players, right?
That's not the plan, right? We don't want someone who's how to say this, lower skill to have a bad experience. We want someone who's higher skill to have a bad experience.
Now, we could dive into the SBMM debate, which would take a long time, but the bottom line is that with a system like SBMM existing, it's not like low tier players are going to experience the bunny hopping slide canceling mayhem that exists anyways because they're stuck in those low KD brackets. Which, do I have to remind you that advanced movement is barely even used in the low KD brackets anyways, so what is Infinity Ward trying to protect these people from? Why not just leave the existing mechanics in the game for us aggressive players to enjoy in our high KD brackets? It literally makes zero logical sense. The second reason is that there is going to be a brand new game mode coming out along with Warzone 2 called DMZ. And DMZ is going to be an extraction type game mode similar to Escape from Tarkov. And if you're unfamiliar with Tarkov, it is a very, very hyper realistic military type shooter. You'll notice that Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2 have a very similar vibe because they're trying to implement all of these new DMZ features into Warzone and multiplayer. And the reason why this is such a big problem is because what made multiplayer so great in the golden age of COD was ruined by Warzone features. And literally the last 3 years of multiplayer experience can confirm that. But now what made Warzone so great is going to be ruined by these new DMZ features, such as the new loadout system, looting system, AI bots, and strongholds. Why are we adding AI bots all around the map? That is not the direction we want to go down. Don't even get me started on that. The bottom line is that it just completely ruins the dopamine factor of getting an actual kill. It's a very easy pattern to see because this is now the second time where Infinity Ward is making a new game mode with new features that are great for that specific mode, but detrimental to the other game modes, and in this situation, Warzone. Another pretty important point I want to touch on is the UI design in Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2. If you guys play the game, it looks like a puzzle. Like, it is so confusing to navigate the UI in this game. And I didn't know this up until a couple days ago, but the reason why it's so bad is because it was designed by people from fucking Hulu. Yes, that Hulu, a streaming service for TV shows and movies, designed the UI for a AAA video game. Now, yes, this is also going to be in Warzone 2, unfortunately, because people who played at the COD Next event also touched on this as well, because what it does is it just creates a very unnecessary, clunky, and miserable thing that you have to navigate throughout the game. It almost feels like you're pausing the game and going back in. On the other hand, with the current UI we have in Warzone, it's a very specific list in the buy station. It's a very easy way to drop plates, drop money right now. I'm telling you right now, if what we saw at the COD Next event makes its way into Warzone, we are going to be miserable at the release. What everything really comes down to is they are messing with a near perfect pace and flow of the game that made Warzone 1 so great in the first place. And the worst part about it is they're trying to force these changes down our throats, which in reality is just going to make the player base drop off like flies. The number one thing that I will always stand by that made Warzone so good when it first released is it was very, very natural. If you didn't know, the original release of Warzone was never predicted to do good. They actually only planned for Warzone to last 1 year with the Modern Warfare guns, but because of its unexpected success, they, rushed the Cold War integration, rushed all of these new guns into the game that were absolutely broken because Infinity Ward had to hand over the development to Raven Software. The same thing that happened with Verdansk also happened with Rebirth Island. They just simply released Rebirth Island in a seasonal update. They didn't really expect anything from it, but what happened is people just naturally fell in love with it and then gradually switched over to the resurgence mode over time. Now, here's the worst part about it, because what they're planning on doing for Warzone 2 is removing Rebirth and Fortune's Keep from Warzone 1, and then in Warzone 2, we're most likely not going to be getting a new Resurgence map for about a year, which is just absolutely inane how they're doing that, because Resurgence is literally more popular than Caldera. And it's only logical to assume that going into Warzone 2 without a Resurgence mode, what are people going to do that don't like regular Battle Royale? The bottom line is that they are trying to take away everything that made Warzone 1 so natural and good by force just to implement these new DMZ features that do not belong in the game. Ladies and gentlemen, that right there is how you kill video games. Now, we're going to end off Warzone 1 with a bang for new content, but in the meantime, I want you guys to check out my best ever Warzone video that I think I have ever made. So click here to watch.